What's up, everyone? Welcome into the All 22 NFL Show, the official channel of the All 22 Fantasy Football platform. It's the only fantasy football game with full 53-man rosters, including offensive linemen, where you get to choose personnel packages and have access to PFF grading and advanced stats to make decisions each week. To learn more and sign up, go to all-22.com. Ray, we took a little bit of a hiatus unexpectedly. For those of you out there that follow us religiously, we're sorry. First, me and my entire family got sick. Ray and his entire family got sick. Ray is currently sick, and some are calling this his Michael Jordan flu game. I'm not, but some people are.
Ray, you left out the small detail that you got me sick. So this is
semantics. You don't know that. You don't know that it was me. Kids are disgusting, dude.
You know the dominoes meme, the domino meme where it's some random event, and then it's Mike McDaniel's now the offensive coordinator for the Chargers. That was you. Dude. You were the small domino, and then bam.
We went swimming in a pool that somebody with cholera was in before, and you're gonna blame me?
Is that what the test said? I don't know.
I don't know, dude. I'm just saying anything's possible. You don't know that it was for me.
I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what that is.
Ray and I hung out the next day. Me and my entire family got sick. So, could have been us. But we're here, Ray. I hope you can survive this episode. My notes are 3 weeks old, so I'm going to try to remember as best I can what we wanted to talk about here. But I know that with the season kind of getting closer and closer, people are doing their drafts. So we wanted to create an episode or a series of episodes where maybe we start to say, who are the breakouts? Who are the guys you can target a little bit later to help build your team for the future? And, again, stop you from overpaying for somebody that somebody else will, right? Everybody's going to go after George Pickens this year. Maybe you don't have to be that guy. Maybe there's somebody else we could recommend today to get you that same value. Maybe not the same value, but some really good value. And Ray, we wanted to start with receiver just because, one, it is an extremely deep position. It's also a fun position. We wanted to have a little bit of fun. Before we even jump into that, do we want to address what's happening with the supplemental draft that's happening on Monday of next week?
Yeah. So after Texas Tech decided to just just say no rules ever apply to anything ever, and we're just going to try to play Brendan Sorsby as our quarterback, and the entire college football world was like, no, you're not, because none of us are going to play you, and we're all going to sue you, basically. Then they backed off, essentially, and Brendan Sorsby entered the supplemental draft, but he still has to be approved by the NFL, I think, to actually enter the supplemental draft. I don't think that's officially happened yet. And aside from the player, we'll try to focus on the player. We gotta go back to the truck and see what's out there for us to be able to share with you with regards to Brendan Sorsby, the player and the prospect. But how is the NFL going to handle a quarterback that has gambled on his own football games, on his own team? He bet the under on one of his team's games. The under, what do we I don't even know. That's people have him blacklisted for much less in the NFL than that. So are they just going to be yeah, come on in. We're just going to act like you're Terrell Pryor, same, he sold some pants for tattoos and you just bet on your own football team. It's the exact same thing. Come on in. We'll take you with a third or something. I really have no clue how the NFL is going to treat that, but here's the thing. Everybody's pointing out the Cleveland Browns. They don't have a real established quarterback, and it's perfect. He's going to go to the Cleveland Browns. If the Cleveland Browns take somebody with an obvious flaw in their profile, whether on or off the field, where you could have the foresight to say, in 5 years, this guy's going to be out of the league completely because of X, that thing is going to happen because he went to the Cleveland Browns. So no, the Cleveland Browns should stay far away from Brendan Sorsby. I don't care who is at quarterback for them. I don't care if they bring back Johnny Manziel. They should still not bring back, draft Brendan Sorsby with any pick in the supplemental draft. So let's just say that. But this is a really curious case with zero precedent, honestly, at the most visible position. I'm just not sure what appetite the NFL has for a quarterback with this type of history and the issues and problems it can present 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, even. I'm not sure those are waters that the league wants to wade into.
Here's the thing, right? Like he didn't do this while being an employee of the NFL. So how much can they really ping him on that? I don't know, dude. And hate to say this to you, but if there's one team that's going to do it, it's probably the Cowboys, man. The Cowboys will put a third-round pick in front of it. They blow third-round picks on, their sixth receiver on their depth chart, right? So like, why not another quarterback? If anybody's going to do it, it's the Cowboys, man. It's going to be Jerry.
Because they still think Joe Milton might be a thing in 4 years after Dak Prescott. They're like, if we could just teach him how to pass, he could be a really good quarterback.
And they might not be wrong.
Yeah. No, they're wrong.
All right.
Yeah. Brendan Sorsby.
Well, honestly, it's like it's Monday. I think the deadline for the supplemental draft is Monday, the 22nd. So definitely something to pay attention to and keep track of. I know I'm going to, right? Because there are a bunch of teams where you're telling me the Cardinals right now wouldn't want to take a swing on him. I don't know, man. It's going to be pretty interesting. Let's jump into this though, right? We're talking about which receivers do we think are going to take that big, massive step forward, either from irrelevance to relevance, from good to great. Like there's different tiers to this, and we could kind of do it that way. We're going to do the 5 guys, right? We're going to do 5 guys. You got 3, I got 2, but to make up for that, Ray, just because I felt so bad, I have 2 guys that I want to do honorable mention for. So let's have a quick conversation about these 2 guys. Starting off with, how about Troy Franklin? Okay. So I know the Broncos just got Jaylen Waddle. That trade likely pushes Franklin to the number 3, right, receiver on the depth chart, but he's still just 23 years old. Just to put together a 700-yard season, has extremely close ties to Bo Nix, the quarterback, right? Is there a possibility that Franklin remains a key piece to this passing attack? And you also have to think about it, right? Going to 700 yards last year, can he get to 900, 1,000 yards this year? His grading was pretty good as well. How much longer is Courtland Sutton going to be the number 1 guy there, right? And I think that's a big reason why they went for Jaylen Waddle, right? Courtland Sutton, I'm pretty sure, is going to be entering his either year 30 or 31 season. How much more is left in the tank for Sutton? And at what point is this maybe just a Jaylen Waddle, Troy Franklin receiver room? And in that situation, I think Troy Franklin is going to look really good and really attractive in the fantasy community.
So this is going to be a little bit of a battle between Troy Franklin and the next guy, because I think you look at Pat Bryant, who is not one of my names for breakout candidate, but the Broncos drafted him, I believe, in the 3rd round, and late in the year, okay, like around, I think the last 6 weeks or so of the season, right around Thanksgiving onward, he averaged like over 4 catches, 6 targets a game, around 50 yards. The problem is he got injured like 3 different times. I think he had a really big concussion, and then he only played like a few games during the playoffs, and then got hurt again. But over the last 6 weeks of the season, they made a concerted effort. 6 targets is not nothing for a rookie, number 1, but also a rookie pretty down the depth chart. So, and obviously, again, day 2 draft capital on Pat Bryant as well. They're different archetypes of receivers, but targets are targets. And there are only so many to go around. So depending on who can kind of assert themselves this offseason, because like you say, I think Courtland Sutton, he's on his way out as it relates to being a sort of top target focal point of that offense for maybe just another year or so. Which one positions themselves for that next man up to be sort of the complement to Jaylen Waddle in the offense once Courtland Sutton's days, are behind him? I think it's between those 2 names.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. I think Pat Bryant is going to kind of fight and battle for some playing time. I just do think that he kind of replicates more of what Courtland Sutton does than what either Tez or Jaylen Waddle are going to be asked to do. I also think Marvin Mims is in that room, right? This is a deep receiving room, and there's guys that are going to want to fight for time. I still like just what I see and what I see on screen. Troy Franklin, to me, is the best of that bunch, right? Jaylen Waddle's different tier. Maybe we're going to talk about him at some point, but I think Troy Franklin is a really good receiver. The other guy I had for honorable mention, kind of a similar archetype. But what about Tez Johnson? Okay, so I know this one's a little bit more far-fetched, but I wanted to go, and the reason I have him honorable mention is because, like, let's go from total irrelevance to, can there potentially be a role for this guy where all of a sudden he's like making rosters in all 22? Igbuka is going to step up and be the main dude this year. They lose Mike Evans. Chris Godwin, dude, I don't know, man. Is there anything left there? You're going to want to talk about that, but I don't know if there's anything really there for a long period of time over the course of a season. I think somebody's got to step up. Tez offers an interesting speed element that I think creates some fun, creative plays in the offense that they can carve out for him. And again, this is one of the best passing attacks in the NFL. There's going to be a lot of targets going around. Yes, Jalen McMillan is a good player, stepped up, maybe has that role kind of carved out for himself. Ted Hurst, they go and draft in the 3rd round. He's looking like, he's going to make some noise as well. But again, in my mind, Tez Johnson offers the most different and unique kind of skill set that, to me, seems like there should be a role possible for him in this offense, especially, again, when Mike Evans is leaving, maybe Chris Godwin is done, and it's going to be this new kind of group of receivers in Tampa Bay taking the step forward.
Well, the other thing is, with the injuries that they've had at running back with Bucky Irving and his shoulder and things being weird, and like, okay, yeah, he returned to the field this week, but not really. Mm-hmm. They can manufacture touches for someone like Tez Johnson on reverses and sweeps and things of that nature, as well as kind of like the old extension of the running game. Like, that's what Tez Johnson is for. So in a platform and environment like all 22, where again, we're not sitting here worried about whether Tez Johnson is going to get 10 targets a game. It's, hey, can he fulfill his role properly and do well? He can be that type of player. And I think the opportunity, even more so than at wide receiver, I think just in general as just offensive weapon, offensive, playmaker, I think that's opening up for him to maybe carve out a role for himself, because again, things are not settled in that backfield. And they're going to need to, again, just kind of find ways to get some explosive chunk plays outside of, there is no downfield Mike Evans anymore. And Ibuka, yes, he's going to step up, but he hasn't, to the level of Mike Evans, probably not. So that's a void that has to be filled. And that's one of the creative ways you can fill that, void. Does he get 15 plus snaps each week on offense so that maybe he is a nice flex play in all 22? I think he might be around that line, give or take. So yeah, it's a name. It's like a watch list name, I'll say, but yeah, it could certainly happen.
I think that's fair. And again, it's like irrelevance to, can he be on that roster bubble for some teams in all 22? All right, Ray, I did a lot of talking. I want to hear, give me like again, like if you have like the lowest level player on your list, give me that guy.
You know me, Chris, I'm heartless. I'm cruel. I don't look at the low level guys at all. So even my low level guy, people have kind of started to catch on a little bit.
Okay. So
this is more from like kind of sleeper to, you're going to know his name if you don't already, or he's going to make sure of it. And that's Ryan Flournoy, the wide receiver for the Cowboys. All the talk is about obviously CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens' contract, and he signed the franchise tag. And is he going to, attend minicamp? I think he attended this week and all that. Those get the headlines. Ryan Flournoy, the Dallas Cowboys love what he can do for them. They are super high on this kid, and so for some advanced metrics here, he had 0.45 EPA per target, which was top 15 in the entire league, which was higher than Nico Collins at 0.35, T. Higgins at 0.33. So yes, it's a relatively small sample size, but not that small. We're not talking someone who was on the field for 8 snaps a game. The targets he did get, they were highly productive. He has a 0.073 catch rate over expected on a 71.4% catch rate. What does that mean? That means that his catch rate is well above expectation. So he has good hands. And the targets that he gets, you'll notice when you watch the Cowboys, are over the middle there in a lot of traffic at times too, kind of those tough grabs and tight windows. So for that catch rate to be that high is pretty impressive. At the same time, he has a 3.0 separation from Next Gen Advanced Stats, which is the same exact number as Jackson Smith-Njigba, if you've heard that name before, Chris, and actually George Pickens, so the other wide receiver above him on the depth chart on the Cowboys. So, and when he's on the field, nearly 21% target share. So CeeDee Lamb's on the field, George Pickens is on the field, Ryan Flournoy is in the slot. Cowboys run a lot of 11 personnel, even though they have the reputation as a run-first offense. It's like 21% of targets. That's a pretty darn good rate for a young player behind two star wide receivers. When there were injuries at wide receiver for the Cowboys in Week 14, he had 9 catches, 115 yards, and a touchdown against the Lions. Against the Giants in the last game of the season with Joe Milton as his quarterback, he had 5 catches for 68 yards. His snap share went up late in the year consistently, while partially due to injuries, obviously also just earning the trust of the staff as he just kind of matures as a young player. Had an overall grade of 80.3 by PFF. So again, 15th among all wide receivers. This is not just a super low, volume, just statistical sort of, sample size outlier. This is someone who plays legitimate snaps and has performed well every single time the occasion called for it. So we don't know what's going to happen with George Pickens' contract. And likely to be a true breakout household name, he would need an injury in front of him at wide receiver. But as a flex play and an all-22, he's going to do his role really well and provide some really good grading for you. He's only owned, I think, in 34% of leagues right now. So you can get him on the waiver wires in preseason free agency before the league before the season starts. This could be a heck of a pickup for you at a huge position of value for owners in all 22. So Ryan Flournoy, breakout candidate, however you want to classify it, as from sleeper to good. But if the opportunity presents itself, he could go from sleeper to great in a hurry.
Ooh, I like that, Ray. And I've been seeing his name a lot. He's apparently impressing a lot in camp. How the heck does he have 20% target rate or whatever you said when there's CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, and Jake Ferguson, right? Like, that seems absurd.
Well, first off, the Cowboys pass a lot. That's number one. For some of those games, CeeDee might have been out for a couple, but he was still sharing with George Pickens.
Right.
And then he really took off in that Detroit game. So even if you scale it back, the 21% target share was more so to show that, like, hey, this isn't super small sample size outlier. This is legit over the course of months. You could probably expect that closer to 15, 16. So 1 out of every 6 and instead of 1 out of every 5, if everybody's on the field healthy. But again, if not, if that window's there, they think he can step in as a starting wide receiver, and you don't want to say not miss a beat because you don't want to call him CeeDee Lamb or George Pickens, but he will be a good value add starting wide receiver and not just a placeholder that as time goes on, if you have to start him, there's some players in the NFL, hey, if you got to start him for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you're okay. If you got to start them for 5 or 6 weeks, now they start to get exposed. Now you kind of have a bit of a problem. That's not Ryan Flournoy. He can be in there for the long haul.
Yeah, I really like that. All right, well, I'm gonna pivot. I'm gonna pivot a little bit here, and I'm gonna go back to a team that I just think somebody needs to step up. Right? That's actually kind of both of mine. I'm gonna do one at a time here. Obviously, we'll break it up. But the Colts just traded away Michael Pittman, and everyone is kind of right now overpaying for Josh Downs. It feels like it seems like everybody is thinking Josh Downs is gonna be the guy. But can we just all agree that Alec Pierce already maybe just better, right? And Pierce eclipsed the 1,000-yard mark last year with a 79.3 season grade after 800 yards the year prior. And Michael Pittman just gave up 80 receptions, 784 yards, leaving that on the table for somebody to go get. And again, I think Downs gets a chunk of that. But if you told me that Alec Pierce already had 1,000 yards and the team just opened up 784 additional yards, is there a world where, again, we don't need to count stats in all 22, but is there a world where Alec Pierce's role expands and now he's getting 1,200, 1,300 yard season? The injury stuff, super scary, right? I hate it when guys go into camp and they're missing time already. That's a huge red flag for me, especially after a big year like Alec Pierce had last year. So I don't want to overpay for Pierce either. But it just feels like right now Josh Downs is on people's radar as the receiver to get for the Colts. And I would just say pump your brakes on that. Let's take a look at where Pierce is being drafted and figure out really who is the better buy. Because again, if Pierce only gets 15% of what Michael Pittman is giving up, that's still like a massive, massive season for Michael Pittman, and one that like everybody should want a piece of.
Well, I'm a Josh Downs truther and always have been. My concern with Alec Pierce is Daniel Jones's injury.
Yeah.
What does he look like coming off an Achilles? What if it's just not good? Like what if it's just not good? And it doesn't have to be Anthony Richardson bad to be not good. So
the thing with those injuries as well, right, is like being able to push the ball down the field, which is a big Alec Pierce. That's how he gets open, right, is down the field a lot of times. And again, that's why I'm saying, like, with Pittman gone, I think the role that opens up might force Alec Pierce to become a little bit more. And that's what he's going to have to be, because you're right. If that injury to Daniel Jones limits his ability to go downfield, then it's not going to be there for him. And then, yes, Josh Downs is going to be the favorable option because there's going to be a lot more underneath stuff. I'm still going Alec Pierce, but go ahead, continue, please.
Yeah, that was it. Just Daniel Jones, like, is he going to be okay? He looked good, then he looked kind of okay, then he got hurt. Basically, everybody got hurt at the same time for the Colts last year. They traded for Sauce. They're like, all right, we look great. We're going to go all in. And then
two first, baby.
Poof, it just all fell apart like in an instant. So I think it's dependent on Daniel Jones's recovery. And like you said, can he push the ball downfield coming off that Achilles? Or are they going to revert to more safe stuff where that then favors Tyler Warren, Josh Downs, kind of over the middle yak type of throws for that offense to function? We won't know until we see it for ourselves in the fall, but if they could push the ball downfield, it opens things up for Pierce for sure.
All right, Ray, who do you got as your next guy?
All right, we're going to keep powering through this thing here. So I really wanted, not that I really wanted to, because he's so popular and I buy into all of it. You know, I love me some Luther Burden. However, in looking at the data, right? If I have to be data guy, Rome Odunze has a real case to be a breakout. And I did not think I would come to this conclusion.
Yeah. Wow. Okay?
He had 99 targets last year, which was like, I couldn't even believe that, honestly. It didn't seem like that, probably because it was a sub 50% catch rate in 2025, right? However, again, he was top 10 in deep target rate. So a ton of those targets were just deep downfield, lower percentage throws. We know that's his role, so that's not necessarily going to change too much, right? But he was, when I kind of mentioned earlier, that separation for Flournoy. You know who else had a 3.0 separation rate? Rome Odunze, that same tier with George Pickens. So he could separate, or can separate, downfield. Maybe it's just a matter of another offseason, another year together with Caleb Williams and in that offense where they can start to connect more downfield, where then they can they convert those big plays, and he's breaking games open, and his grading is through the roof. His scoring is through the roof as a result, because just even from a basic sort of expected level, I think he was like 13% below expected catch rate on those deep passes. So even if he just gets back to the mean without any improvement, you can expect substantial improvement in his performance from there. But then also you traded DJ Moore away to Buffalo. So that opens up just overall target share in general. So now the target inventory is just the big three: Odunze, Loveland, and Burden. That's just a bigger piece of the pie for him to go through. So again, if that target share goes from 99 to 130 targets and they just connect more on just a few of those deep passes, this is an 1,100 plus yard receiver who may be pushing 6-8 plus touchdowns. That's pretty damn good for a second year receiver, and what you'd expect for someone with his draft capital. So again, I think everybody loves Luther Burden. He's been the popular name all offseason, and I love Luther Burden. I have tons of Burden shares. But Rome Odunze could have just as big of a breakout, if not more, depending on how they connect downfield this coming season.
Ray, what you don't understand is that what really is going to happen is that everybody's going to have figured out Ben Johnson's offense. All the receivers are going to take a step back, and the Bears are going to win 3 games. So I get what you're saying. I get what you're trying to do here, but it's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen for the Bears this year. Sorry, Bears fans.
You're right. Yeah, it is a simple offense. Like once you see it once, you figure it out. So it's just
you figure it out. You just figure it out. All right, we're gonna pivot again, right? I'm gonna go to another one of those offenses where it's just somebody has to get the targets, right? Somebody has to be seeing the field more, and that's the Raiders. I don't know that I know who the person is going to be. I'm going to recommend somebody at the end. But if you look at the Raiders and what they did this offseason, right? They said Pete Carroll was there a year ago basically saying, I want to try to win. I don't care about your young players and getting them on the field. And Pete Carroll's gone, right? Spytech, the GM there, I think he wants more of a voice in personnel decisions and who is seeing the field. And I think that's a big reason why Pete Carroll was a one and done. They have somebody else in there now, and it's going to be more about developing these young players. They also go and add Mendoza, the quarterback, who should be a significant step up from what Geno Smith was last year. It just has to be. On top of that, you look at the offensive line, and I think this was the worst offensive line in football last year, being coached by Pete Carroll's son. And nepotism is a real thing, right? And like we don't want to bash somebody who's a Hall of Famer in Pete Carroll, but you don't put your son out there if he's not going to be the guy and he's not ready for that kind of role, because that really was like a terrible offensive line, and it really shouldn't have been. This is a team that has legitimate names on the offensive line where it just shouldn't be that bad. They've also added a couple pieces this offseason. So the offensive line is better. Quarterback should be a step up. You get rid of the coach that doesn't want to invest in young players. And all of a sudden it looks like an attractive place for some of these younger receivers, right? You look at Trey Tucker last year, kind of had a little bit of a breakout himself. He's going to be back, and I expect him to maintain his role. They bring in Jaylen Naylor from Minnesota. I think he's limited, to be honest. I just don't think that he is a guy that's going to be that great. So to me, it's between 2 players, right? You see Dante Thornton Jr. and what he did in camp last year had everybody really excited, right? This was a bigger receiver, big downhill threat. And I think Mendoza is going to use that somewhat. And I think Thornton definitely has a role. But again, you look at Spytech and the investment he made in the second round in Jack Besh, and you just have to think that opportunity is going to be given to Besh to see if they have something here. Second round pick, had really only one great year at TCU, had over 500 yards, 1,034 yards his senior year with 9 touchdowns, ended up with a 61.2 receiving grade. So again, like this was not a guy that I was coming to you a year ago saying like, I'm a big Jack Besh guy. Like I wasn't. I thought they overdrafted him. But you start to piece together where the GM wants him, the team is getting better all around him on the offensive side, and they invested a second-round pick in this guy. So I think you could get him for cheap. I think this is a guy that, again, is on the roster bubble right now for a lot of people, and I think he's one that's worth keeping on your roster at the bottom of your depth chart for a rainy day, just in case him and Mendoza end up, meshing and vibing. And this is the guy that kind of takes off with Mendoza as the next Raiders great receiver.
I think Brock Bowers is going to get 225 targets.
That's without a doubt, man. But somebody has to be on the receiving side.
I guess they don't have to be good. Yeah. Maybe the Raiders should have dealt Max Crosby for someone who can catch the ball from their rookie quarterback and help him out a little bit. Who knows?
Couldn't agree more.
Or you
I think they tried.
I guess. Yeah, it could be one of those things where somebody's got to step up, but maybe someone just doesn't. Everything else, though, yeah, I do think the offensive line is going to be better. I think they should be better. Jackson Powers-Johnson, Tyler Linderbaum on the interior there. Their tackles have always been pretty decent at worst, if not better. So, yeah, all right. They got a GM named Spytech, and Tom Brady is like part owner. There's something there. I'll let someone do.
Never made that connection. I like it, Ray.
Yeah. So I guess I'm gonna wrap this up with my health bar, like my stamina bar is just like, but we're
You
gonna
got
power
this, dude.
through this
Come on.
with the final name. Somehow I ended up with like more names to give this episode, but we're just going to bring it right back to where we started, the Denver Broncos. And yes, I'm going to talk about Jaylen Waddle again. I feel like every year I have at least one episode where I sit here and pitch you on Jaylen Waddle. Jaylen Waddle is going to go from good to great, or maybe even star yet again. First off, he's only 27 years old. All right. I know it feels like he's been in the league for a lot longer because when you have Jaylen Waddle on your roster, it feels like multiple times a year he's leaving the game early, coming back in, like dealing with some health stuff. And it's just never easy. It just feels like a slog, even when the end result shows some pretty good production. But he's gone from all that now. Okay. And now he's in Denver under Sean Payton. So a few things to note, a few metrics to note. Just to kind of go through here, right? Courtland Sutton, we mentioned, is getting older, and he's a contested catch X receiver. There has not been for a while now a high volume downfield complement who can carry 35% plus air yards in an offense. In Miami, Jaylen Waddle's air yard share was 38.6%. Okay, so almost nearly half of their yards on offense in the passing game were going to Jaylen Waddle. Okay, that's a huge number. And he had no complement. Courtland Sutton had no complement. You bring those two together with skill sets that kind of fit each other perfectly. That's going to help Jaylen Waddle big time because Jaylen Waddle is going to be asked to do what he did in Miami, but everything around him was just completely broken. And now I'm going to bring back two names, one from the recent past, one from the distant past, Michael Thomas and Marcus Colston. What the heck do they have to do with Jaylen Waddle? Those aren't even the same type of receiver as Jaylen Waddle. Those are bigger bodied receivers, but those are primary like movement slot wide receivers, despite their physical prowess, right? Their size, they were moved around a lot in Sean Payton's offense. Jaylen Waddle is that type of player that Sean Payton can move around pre-snap, in motion, get him, on the move, away from press coverage. So while the physical archetypes are different, the volume that those two had in previous Sean Payton offenses is going to go to someone like Jaylen Waddle. They gave up a first-round pick for him to give him presumably the type of volume they gave Courtland Sutton last year when there wasn't much else there helping him out, which was 124 targets. So you assume that with the catch rate that he had in Miami, you're looking at 11 to 1,200 yards again and 7 to 9 touchdowns. The numbers are out there too about the number of pass attempts that Bo Nix has thrown. I think it's up there near the tops in the league among all quarterbacks. It's a perfect spot for Jaylen Waddle to finally have someone that complements him but doesn't overshadow him. When it was Waddle and Hill, it was two speed guys. It was two downfield burners, and Hill was just better. And then Hill got hurt, and then everything was just broken around Waddle. Now you have someone that complements what he does best in an offense that throws the ball down the field more than anyone in the league. With the histories there under Sean Payton, he's going to go from good to great, and nobody's talking about him because everyone's fed up with Jaylen Waddle, and I get it. But this is it. Finally, this is it. All right, margin call. Like, this is it. All right, Jaylen Waddle's going to go back to 1,200 yards and be what he used to be when he was 23, 24 years old, because he's finally playing in a professional quarterback that can get him the ball.
Ray, I agree with you 100%. So Jaylen Waddle, I think out of college, I thought was a little bit overdrafted. I think people were a little too high on him just because
like fourth or third or something. Like
he was picked 6 overall.
Damn, 6, yeah.
He was picked 6 overall. You know what I mean? Like that was, and he was picked ahead of his college teammate Devonta Smith. And if you actually, I was just looking it up while you were talking, like their stats over their career so far are hilariously identical. So I have it up in front of me. Jaylen Waddle has 373 receptions. Devonta Smith has 385. Jaylen Waddle has 5,039 yards. Devonta Smith has 5,019. Jaylen Waddle has 26 touchdowns. Devonta Smith has 31. Like, it has been almost identical careers. I think the difference between the two is that, and this is why I push back a little bit on him now breaking out and becoming a superstar, because you probably forgot his second year in the NFL, he had 1,356 yards and 8 touchdowns. Like, this is a guy that was already broken out. And it's really been just kind of a regression over the last few years. But that's been Miami. Like, you hit it on the head. Like, Miami has regressed as a team over that time. Tua has been out for significant chunks. That offensive line has gotten worse. And it's just been a really bad situation where Devonta Smith is part of a Super Bowl team and it's gotten better every year. But there's been a lot more consistency, I'd say, in Devonta Smith's game. I had talked about it to you at a certain point where I said, the Broncos were going and trying to get a number one receiver. A.J. Brown was available, and they paid more than what the Patriots paid for A.J. Brown for Jaylen Waddle. I don't know how I feel about that, right? Like, I just don't. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of, two situations, right? You talked about DJ Moore earlier when you were talking about Rome Odunze's breakout. And once upon a time, Chicago traded for DJ Moore, taking him from Carolina. In his first year with Chicago, he had 1,364 yards and 8 touchdowns. So, huge breakout, up 500 yards from his previous year. But after that, it was down to 966. And then the following year was 682. And then he wasn't on the team anymore. And then if you look at a guy like Stephon Diggs, who was traded from Minnesota to Buffalo, his first year in Buffalo was 1,535 yards and 8 touchdowns. Luckily, there was a bit more luck there, right? 1,225 yards and 10 touchdowns, 1,411 touchdowns. So, the point I'm trying to make is, I think when a team trades that much capital for a number one receiver, they will feed the guy. So I think all of the opportunity in the world will be there for Waddle. I just don't really know if this is going to go in the DJ Moore trajectory or the Stephon Diggs, where one of them had kind of one really promising year and then it just went down each year from there. Or is this going to be, this is really who this guy is, and he's always been a superstar, just wasn't being given the opportunity or on the right team for that kind of success. If I had to guess, I'd say it's somewhere in the middle. I think Jaylen Waddle is going to prove that he's a really talented receiver. He's going to get somewhere around 1,200 yards, and he's going to look great. I just think it's probably going to hover somewhere around 1,000 yards, maybe like that 80 PFF grade every year, which is, again, it's very, very good. I just don't know if it's really that true superstar in today's NFL, where there's guys like Puka, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, guys getting 15, 16, 1,700 yards. This is like a step below that in my mind.
Yeah, those are S tier. I think he could be like the back half of the A tier. If he's wide receiver 14, I don't think that's crazy at all. And I don't know what he finished last year, honestly, but it sure wasn't that. And
yeah,
not entirely sure it was his fault. But grade wise, he's a top 12-ish receiver. He was 12th in grading last year overall per PFF, despite the just absolute mess around him. He has always done what he could do or was asked to do. Just, I don't know, fresh start, Sean Payton. You know me, I'm a big Sean Payton guy. I put a lot of trust in Payton, and if he's going to invest in you, there's a plan for it. And when Sean Payton has a plan, usually means good things if you're on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if the Broncos are in the Super Bowl next year. I think they should have been this past year if Bo Nix doesn't get injured, right? Like, that's, go place your bets. This is not a betting podcast. Don't do it here. Ray, is there anybody else you want to call out? I did my guys. I did some honorable mentions. Is there anybody else?
Those are my guys. Ladd McConkey, yes, everybody. Keenan Allen's gone. Ladd McConkey's now going to get a ton of targets, and it's Mike McDaniel. Yeah, we know that. Yes. We're not going to be like every other podcast out there that says Ladd McConkey's about to ascend again. Yes, we all know that. But yes, he is going to ascend.
Yeah. And really what I was I think we had different approaches, right? Which is cool, which makes this more fun. It's, you were going for the guys that in fantasy are going to take your team from good to great as they go from good to great. I was going more from the lens of who is the guy that you can get that's going to end up being way more productive than anybody thought they were, and is going to make your team and be a player on your team for the future. Both of those things have a ton of value, right? It's just how much value. And I think a question I was going to ask you about Jaylen Waddle, I forgot, so let's do it now, is if you don't have Jaylen Waddle, what is he worth? Like, what is Jaylen Waddle worth in all 22 now?
Man, you're going to ask the truther. If I'm deep at wide receiver, I'll take a second for Jaylen Waddle. That's teens, 18th pick in a rookie draft or something. You know what? Maybe not in this draft. Nope, not in this draft.
Say, really?
Yeah, nope. It needs to be a 1. It needs to be a top 12 pick in this draft. It'd probably be a first, which is what the Broncos gave up for him, and some change. So
they gave up more than that. Yeah, they gave up a first and a second, I think, and something else.
Yeah,
it was a lot.
But Chris, I'm always here to help you out. If you're on the other side of a deal with me, you just don't always recognize that.
Dude, I've been trying to make a trade with you, and you're just in la la land. So everybody, Ray has to cut 7 players, and just thinks that he only has to cut 3. And I'm just like, I'm over here trying to get one of these Tez Johnson type players who's going to be cut. And Ray's just like, no, I want 3 firsts for him. I'm like, all right, guy. Enjoy when you drop him in 2 weeks, and then I'll just pick him up for free.
That's false. That whole situation was completely false. You're like, oh yeah, you have to cut 7 players. So let me ask for a player that you're not going to cut, who's 23 with a lot of upside, and I'll give you.
I want to know who you're cutting. I've been asking. I'm like, who are the 7 guys? Name the 7 guys.
I don't know yet. All my players are so good. So that's why if you want to take a roster spot for Jaylen Waddle, it's going to have to be a first and maybe some change. And like I said, it's if I'm deep at wide receiver. If I go from, Jaylen Waddle's my second wide receiver and my third wide receiver is 30-year-old Terry McLaurin, I'm holding on to Jaylen Waddle, and I'm not trading him unless you really up the ante. So it's situation dependent, but wide receiver it's a deep position in the league. So if you are deep at receiver and someone believes in Waddle as much as I do, and you could trade him to that person and get some good value and get a first round pick, whether it's late or otherwise, I would say go for it. I wouldn't be opposed to that. I think that'd be a good move, depending on your team makeup. But I wouldn't be trading Waddle for seconds or thirds, especially in the 2026 NFL rookie draft class.
All right, people, you heard it here first. Thank you all for tuning in. Give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and X at all22_PFF, and give us a review wherever you watch or listen to your podcasts. And have a great rest of your day.
Go.